Okay, as she has introduced me, I am Kaushik Das. I work as a principal engineer for Web Runtime Framework team in SRI, Bangalore. So, I will be taking you through this session that reads one size fits all, building apps for any platform with Tizen. So, in this session, we would like to talk about essentially three things. Number one, we would like to introduce you to web applications on Tizen. Then we will be talking about native applications on Tizen, and we will conclude the session with hybrid applications available in Tizen. So I will be taking you through the first half of this session when I will be discussing mainly on web applications. Then my friend Praveen will take you through the rest of the session. And the session is of around 50 to 55 minutes, so we have very short of time. So we would like to take up the questions at the end of the session. But if you have any critical question that is actually affecting your understanding of the topic, you can just stop me, but we would prefer to have the questions at the end. Shall we start? Okay. Now from morning, we are talking that in Tizen, we are promoting web applications. So let's first try to understand what are web applications. Actually, any web application is a web page at its heart. So let's first try to understand what exactly is a web page. When I talk about web page or anyone talk about web page, he or she essentially means about a combination of HTML5, CSS and JavaScript. I am taking these terms pretty loosely because it is not mandatory to have a CSS file for a web page, not mandatory to have a JavaScript file for a web page, but in general we can tell like that. But a web application, although is at its heart a web page, it is not a web page. So I will tell what are the differences between a web page and a web application shortly, but before that let's try to understand little more about the web pages, more specifically about mobile web pages. So this diagram shows our developer summit web page, which is meant for the desktop environment. Now, as you know, perhaps someone has also tried, if you try to access the same web page in your smartphone, the web page will look something like this. Okay? So you can easily notice the desktop web page has been transformed to contain the same thing but in a different way that fits well for mobile environment. And that has been done using a technology called RWD, that is responsive web design. You might be wondering why people have done that, why people will be migrating from desktop web pages to mobile web page. You know what? Mobile is a very, very strong platform, and some statistics shows that in this world the number of people with smartphone, I mean the people afford smartphone even if they cannot afford a good toilet or toothpaste or toothbrush. So that's the kind of effect of smartphone as on today. So everyone is trying to migrate to smartphone arena, and that's why the mobile browsers are very important, mobile web pages are very important, and that's the reason people are migrating from, not migrating, they are having both versions. One is desktop version, another is mobile version. Their intention is to reach actually a rich set of devices, mobile devices that are containing multiple platforms of multiple resolutions. That's for multiple purposes. Why I am telling this statement is, if there is something called truly cross-platform that is expected to work on multiple platforms, the technology is web. Now having said that, I already explained that people develop websites, but you all might have noticed the trend as on today is not sites. All the sites are very slowly, not slowly actually, very fast being replaced by applications. But I have already explained we need web applications to become cross-platform. And what kind of web applications? These web applications are nothing but are not links to some web pages. Those are packaged web applications. So what I will be discussing in this session is on packaged web applications that are available on Tizen platform. So let's try to see what is the architecture, platform architecture of Tizen that supports this kind of web application that I am talking about. In this diagram on the top, I am showing the layer of Tizen APIs. Tizen APIs are composed of two things. One is set of web APIs and set of native APIs. On top in the red, I am showing the web API, and this side yellow shows the native APIs. And all the web applications uses Tizen's web APIs. What are web APIs? I will be taking shortly on that. But just below this web APIs, we have the Tizen web framework that contains the implementations of these web APIs that are exposed to the user. Additionally, it has two more important component, platform component. One is this web runtime, another is this web UI framework. This web runtime framework component is responsible for installation, uninstallation, update, seeing information of widgets and execution of the widgets or web applications on Tizen platform. And this web UI framework is provided to the developers so that they can easily come up with their web UI for their web applications. Below this web framework layer, we have our Tizen core layer, which sits on top of the Tizen Linux kernel and device drivers. Now, as I just mentioned, this Tizen web APIs. Tizen actually provides a lot of web APIs, It includes almost all the standard HTML5 W3C APIs, with which you can perhaps do all these things: location access, media access, storage, communication, graphics, all the things that you can do by standard, you can do using Tizen web APIs. It also provides Tizen specific device APIs. Say for example, if you want to access the Bluetooth in the system, if you want to access the NFC available in the system, then Tizen provides Tizen specific web APIs to do so. But one word of caution, you have to remember Tizen provides multiple profiles, and the support for web APIs are not exactly the same across profiles. So some web API might be available on a profile which might not be available on another profile. So before you develop your application for a particular profile, please go through our online documentation to find out for the support of the web API you are looking for on that particular profile. Now, let me try to explain to you the web application installation flow. Web application, as I mentioned, is a packaged web application, and these are the major stakeholders that are involved while installing any web applications. First of all, the most important stakeholder is the developer who has developed the web application. After developing this web application, developer uploads the application to Tizen store. And when user wants to have that application in their device, user downloads the same application from store. Now, when user downloads the application from store, there is one important platform component named package manager, which gets us a package that is downloaded from the store. As you see, I am showing all .wgt because .wgt is nothing but the web application package. But this package manager is one platform component that is not only responsible for installation of web application, it is also responsible for installation of native applications, hybrid application, everything. But what it does, when it understands this is a web application, it passes on that same package, downloaded package, to another framework component called web runtime. It is the web runtime which installs the web applications to the device. You being a developer might be interested to update your application with new features, with bug fixes for example. Then in that case also, if your application has to be updated, the flow is exactly the same like installation. You developer updates the new package to Tizen store, that in turn gets downloaded to the device, it comes to the package manager which hands over to web runtime in turn updates the package in the system. Apart from these two things, we can as well do uninstallation of the installed web application that you have installed to the device, or you can see the information of the already installed applications. Now, we have already understood what are the different lifecycle flow of web application. Let's try to understand why at the very first point I said, although web application is a web page at its heart, it is not same as a web page, okay? Because it is packaged. It is packaged as a zip archive. Okay, it contains, that zip archive contains all the web resources, HTML file, some other documents, all other resources, everything taken together are archived together and zipped. Okay, and that zip archive has an extension of .wgt. So any web application will have a name something like xyz.wgt. Okay. Now the MIME type for this web application is application/widget. Now let's try to understand what's there inside this web application package that is zipped, that is archived. Okay. The contents are primarily one application configuration document. I'll be explaining what exactly is that. There is also one icon with which you can identify which application you have installed to the device, and you can accordingly launch that application in the device. You also have one start file. What is the role of start file? Start means what? Start of an execution. So whenever a web application is launched, where from to start the execution? That is that start file. So in the package you will have that start file. You will also have some folders containing all other resources required by your web application. So these are nothing but some of the web page resources like CSS file, image files, some localized resources, everything will be present in this folder. Now we understood how the container format should be. Let's try to see with a concrete example of a very simple vanilla hello world application about this container format. Let's assume that a developer wants to, although no one would like to really do that, but for our understanding purpose, let's assume that someone wants to develop one hello world application which will look like this. It will have a one hello world icon and it will have hello world name shown below. Okay, and expectation is that when such a hello world application is touched on screen, then such a page should be visible. It's a very simple page which just shows hello world with some icon, that's all. But even for such a vanilla web application, the content will be like this. We will have so many things. You will have the style sheets that will show the things like this. You will have the icon file, that is this particular icon that I am showing here. It will have the config.xml, that is the configuration document I talked about. You will have the icon.png, that is hello world icon, and you will also have the start file which is index.html. Some of you might be wondering, even for this sample hello world, why do I need a JavaScript? This sample application, no dynamic behavior, nothing. Why do I need a JavaScript even for such a simple hello world application? Would anyone like to guess why you would like to have a JavaScript? What is that? Yes, exactly. It's exactly. So since we are trying to talk about one application, so to give a web page a real application feel, it should behave like an application, right? That means when the application is executed like this, if user presses, for example, the back key, it should exit like any other normal application. So who will handle that back key press? For that purpose, you have to write that JavaScript. Now, I talked about this application configuration document. I will take you through the application configuration document for this vanilla application. Very simple application. You have to understand this configuration document talks about the configuration of this application. And you have to remember one thing very clearly. This is one-time configuration that you have to specify while packaging. After installation, it cannot be changed. So this is a very critical document. You have to write it very judiciously. And you have to understand this entire document, this XML file, it has widget element at its root. If you see this widget element, it introduces the version of the package, it introduces ID of the package. It very importantly also introduces Tizen namespace. Under this Tizen namespace, all the Tizen specified extended elements will be specified in this config.xml file. Next follows one very important element called Tizen application. Since it is under the Tizen namespace, you can easily understand it is something extended by Tizen. This is a very critical element. Without this, your application will not get installed. It is mandatory element which specifies the application ID of the application, the package ID of the application, and very importantly, it also specifies the minimum API version required by the application. Followed by this element, we have the content element which specifies the start file to be used for this application. Next I have the icon element that specifies the icon to be used, followed by the name element which shows the hello world. Lastly, I have this feature element which is used only by the store for filtering purpose to filter some applications. Lastly, I have this element Tizen profile element which tells this application is meant for a profile, mobile profile. Now, we have seen this configuration element. It's a very simple vanilla application. Let's try to understand even for this simple vanilla application, if you want to localize your content, how you can do it. Localize means if the device local is changed, you want the content to be changed. For example, if the device language is changed to Hindi, you want its name to appear in Hindi. You want perhaps the icon to appear in some Hindi icon. How we can do that? Let's say, for example, if I like to say, if you want to change for this application, the name only to be displayed in Hindi. That you can do using this config.xml editor. It comes available with our SDK. There is a tab called Localization tab. Here, using this Localization tab, you can localize elements like name, description and license. But if you want to localize something else, for example, the icon or the CSS files or the HTML files, that is also possible, but you have to use something called a localization wizard. So in this case, I have used these two things to localize my application to show something like this. When the device language is changed to Hindi, now the application name will change to Hindi and icon will also change to Hindi. Now let's see with this small modification what effect I have done to the configuration document. You can see one new name element has been added which shows the name in Hindi. It also shows that structure of the application has also been changed, wherein we have a new folder, locals folder with a hi-in subfolder which contains a Hindi icon inside it. Okay. Now one last point with which I would like to conclude, the web applications runs under very secure environment under web runtime framework in Tizen. Everything is very secure. So when you talk about security, there are three aspects. One is the package security. The web application package is made secure or is kept secured using the signature of the application. It is also can be optionally be encrypted. Second part of the security is about the network access. You might be wondering that since this is a web application, perhaps I can easily access the network. It's actually other way around. All the network access is by default blocked. And if you want to have network access, all the network access is very much restricted using something called widget access request policy or WAR. It also is controlled using content security policy or CSP. Even after that, you need to have something called internet privilege to access the internet. Apart from this security level, we also have something called device security, which takes care of security of device APIs. And in Tizen, if you see this diagram, all the device APIs are accessed within a sandboxed environment created by the web runtime framework. And any device API access is controlled using something called privileges. So there will be a separate session where I will be describing in detail about the privileges, and with this I would like to conclude the session and I will hand it over to my friend Praveen, who will be taking you to native applications and hybrid applications. Thank you very much.
Good afternoon friends, I am Praveen, I am from SRIB Bangalore. So for the rest of the session, I would be taking you through native applications and hybrid applications. So let's first see what is a native application. So in Tizen, a native application is EFL application and it's written in either C or C++ language. And all the native applications access the native framework via Tizen native APIs. So you can get the list of native API reference at developer.tizen.org, and there are plenty of native framework modules which are listed down here, like graphics, web, telephony, messaging, system, security. So like that, there is plenty of support through which you can access your device. So now we heard Kaushik speaking about web applications. So now the question may be coming in your mind, then why Tizen has native applications? So there are some specific advantages if you are going with the native application. Like if you want a broader access of device, then you need to go for Tizen native applications. And also Tizen native applications performance and size is very much better when compared to the web applications. And also, if you are having a team who is comfortable with C or C++ interface, then it's better to go for Tizen native applications. So this would be the agenda which I will be covering. So I will be taking you through the application development process for the native applications. Then we'll be briefly looking over the application state model and the life cycle of a native application. Then we'll be touching upon packaging of a native application, and then an overview of hybrid apps. And finally, I'll be leaving you few parameters which you can use to decide which application to choose for your requirement. So the application development process typically starts with development stage, wherein you have support for default elementary APIs with which you can use the existing elementary UI controls. And there is also a couple of tools, native tools provided by the SDK, which is Visvik, that is what you see is what you get. That is a UI builder. And if you want to edit your EDC files, there is a native tool called Inventor. The next stage would be to build and run your native applications. So you can build in two modes. One is in the debug mode and another is in release mode. So it is recommended till your development process is not complete, you use the debug mode so that you can have better debug access. And once you are done with your development stage and also the optimization stage, and when you are about to upload to the store, you can run it in the release mode, and then the generated TPK you can upload to the store. So the next stage is debugging. So Tizen native applications have support like you can use logs, breakpoints, watch points, GDB. So there are plenty of options for you to debug your applications. And the final stage is optimization. Once all your features are done and ready, it's always better to check for memory leaks and how your application is actually being loaded on the system. Like once your application is running, how much CPU load is it having, or how much memory it is consuming. So to assist you, there are a couple of native tools for that, that is Valgrind and Dynamic Analyzer. So tomorrow there is a detailed session on optimization which will be taken by Ravi Shankar Guntur. So I will recommend you guys to please go through that optimization session. And at the end of this session, I'll be just playing one video wherein I'll be showing you how to create and run the native applications. So let's move on to application state model and the application lifecycle. So any native application stays in 5 different states. The first state is create or ready state. That's where the application is just about to be launched. And from this state, it enters into the created state. This is where the main function of the application is called, and and this is the state where you need to do all your initializations. Like suppose if you are planning to write a UI application, you can create your window, or if you are you can do certain sensor initialization or certain hardware initializations. And from this state, once all the initializations are done, it enters into the running state. And when an application enters from the create state to the running state, the application framework passes certain parameters to your application. So let me give you a small example to what I am trying to tell you here. Let's take the example of a dialer and a call application. So the dialer application will launch a call application. Now, a dialer application would typically try to pass the phone number to the call application so that it can process further. Now, this phone number is a data which needs to be passed on to the application by the framework. So this is done when the application moves from the created state to the running state. And one more thing is, in Tizen, there are two types of native applications. One is UI application and another is the service application. So service application is basically the background applications. And from the running state, that is, once your application is in the running state, your application window gets the focus if it's an UI application. And once the application loses the focus, that is, if it goes to the background, then it enters into a pause state. So you can easily infer that this pause state is very specific to UI applications only. And after an application is done with its task, it can exit and it will enter into the terminated state. So we saw that there were five different states. So there should be some way the application is informed about these transitions. Whenever the application moves from one state to another, the application should be informed about these transitions. So these are the different transition callbacks which the application can register in the main function. So that is app create, app terminate, app pause, app resume, and app control. So these callbacks would be registered in a data structure called event callback, and then it would be passed on to the application framework, which will then inform to the application whenever this state transition occurs. So let's move on to the packaging. The packaging or the installation process of a native app is exactly same as how Kaushik explained for the web application. The only difference being the file format of the package. So a native application is packaged in the form of TPK. So I would not be covering again, repeat the same thing. Instead, I'll be taking you through something called as manifest file. So manifest file is something like a biodata of an application. So here you can find all the information about what a process is and what it is trying to do, such details. So let's see what is there in this manifest XML file. So there is some information like API version, like what API version you intend to use. And there is something like every Tizen native application package will have a unique package ID, which you need to mention over here. And there is the versioning of your application. This follows x.y.z format, where x and y need to be between 0 to 255, and the z needs to be can be between 0 to 65,535. And your application ID. And a package can contain more than one application, and make sure that the policy is, or the rule is, your application ID should always have the package ID followed by certain name. For example, if you are planning to develop two applications and package them in a single package, then you can have, here I have just showed org.tizen.sample. So in that case, it would be org.tizen.sample.ui, and one more application would be org.tizen.sample.service. And this is the executable name. So the next element is feature. This element is basically required for filtering at the store level. So let's take an example like your application uses NFC feature, then you need to mention the feature name here so that when your application is, when a user tries to download any NFC based applications or he connects his device which is having NFC support, only then the application which is providing this feature name as NFC, he can, it will be visible for those devices only. So there are plenty of features which you can refer at this particular our website, that is tizen.org/feature. The next element is privileges. So privileges are basically for the security purpose. Like all Tizen native applications are having a controlled access towards, they can access their native APIs in a controlled manner. So any application who wants to access an service through a native API, they need to explicitly mention the particular privilege associated for that particular service. So like here in this example I have shown for system settings, if you are having, if you are planning to use the system settings, then you have to mention the privilege here, otherwise your application will be denied the access for those APIs. So for the list of all the privileges available, you can just go through this reference that I mentioned here. And regarding localization, as in web applications, even in native applications, we do support the localizations of the application icon and the description name, the label, and of course the icon. So let's move on to the next thing, that's advanced packaging information inside a manifest file. So here there are several attributes. Let's check, like the auto restart. If you want your application to be restarted whenever, if at all it gets crashed in between, then you can use this attribute. Multiple, if you want your application to have multiple instances, then you can make use of that. And no display is, suppose if you don't want your application icon and label to come on the screen, then you can use the no display. On boot is like whenever the device boots for the first, on the device boot, if your application, you want to launch certain services, then you can use the attribute on boot. Task manage is basically to whether to display or not to display your application in the task manager list. The next element is app control. This is very crucial because if you are providing certain service, if your application is providing certain service, then you need to mention this element. Like in this example, I have given like the my application supports an operation called view, and you can view the image of the MIME type image. So like this, if you whenever you mention this, this will be registered with the system, and whenever some application tries to launch to view some images, then a preference would be given to your application, like a application task list would be shown, and user can select. In that list, your application would be displayed. So the next element is metadata keys. Like if you want to pass on certain information related to your packages, say like your author names or your company name, then you can use this metadata keys. These are simple key value pairs. And the next element is data control. So if you have a service application which is maintaining certain database, then it can provide that particular database to the consumers. So this is how you can mention the provider ID, that is the application which is providing this particular data, and what kind of access, whether it's a read only or a write, and the type of database, whether Tizen supports two type of things, like one is SQL and another is the map. Map is a simple key value type based data control, whereas SQL is a row and column based. So with that, I tried to cover an overview of a native application. So let's see what are these hybrid applications. So an hybrid application is a combination of a web UI and a native service. So what's the need of this hybrid applications, or why did we go for hybrid applications? So if you see the web applications, they are not so strong in when it comes to background computing, as well as they don't have as much device access as the native applications. So however, web applications, to develop a web applications, it's pretty fast, and there is already several developers who are already having familiarity with web app development. So we wanted to combine best of both the things. So you can develop all your UI using the web applications, and all your background processing you can use, for that purpose you can use the native services. Now when we say there are two applications, so there should be certain IPC mechanism, and Tizen provides a default IPC which is known as message port. So message port is a very simple and very easy to use IPC, and you can have a unidirectional communication wherein each application will have its own designated port IDs, and before sending you can check whether the remote port ID exists, and if it exists then you can send a message. And on the receiving end, the receiving application can simply register to listening to that particular port, and whenever a message arrives, the callback would be triggered. So like this, we have even bidirectional support. In this thing, whenever the sending application sends a message, it also sends its local port information to the remote end. So when this information is received at the other end, the other received application will make use of this port ID and send a response back to the sender. Now there can be certain requirement wherein the application developer wants this communication to be very secure. So to address this, Tizen is providing something called as trusted communication. So it's same as your bidirectional thing, except that there is some additional security which is added, which is brought by using certain APIs called as message port check trusted. Wherever you are seeing this trusted keyword, right, they are making sure that this communication is secured. Now you have to keep in mind here that this trusted communication can happen only between two applications which are signed with same certificate. That means it has to be developed by the same application developer. So to wind up our session, I would like to leave you with this table wherein on the left side you can see, on your left side you can see various parameters, and on the three columns you can see the three applications available on the Tizen. So how each one fares, you can have an idea here. If you are looking for rapid UI development, then web application is the one you need to choose. And if you are looking for something like an open standard space, then yes, again web application is having that support. And if you are looking for some very performance, you want a very good performance, then I would recommend to go for native applications. And of course offline mode is supported in all the applications. And background support, if you are having some native or service based applications, then better to go for native. Then if you are having some requirement like you want to have an access for the device in a much better way, then again native is the answer. Like you can see here, hybrid is having an advantage of, combines the advantage of both web and native. So basically it can cater to all kinds of requirements. But of course, if you are a little bit worried, like I don't want to get into the complexity of having the IPC and all, then you can ignore that part. So next we will be having a small demo wherein we'll be showing you like how a native applications can be developed. Can we have the video? So this is a simple native application. It doesn't have any EDC or it doesn't use any kind of UI builder. It's a plain, simple hello world application. Is it visible? Yeah. The decision for C language was taken from the beginning itself. Already all the open source community, most of the libraries are developed using the C language. So when the development started, even for the application development, that is native application development, they preferred C or C++. Now, something related to some web thing you are asking? Mm-hmm.
Like we have Chrome supporting NP API or IE supporting ActiveX, something like that, because everything is in your control. You can still get that done in a better way.
Yeah, you're right. It could have been done, but it's not done. I mean, I don't know whether there was a specific reason why it will not be done, but I think while we were in the process of defining the platform and its capability, it was a conscious decision made that we will go this way.
Great. Yeah. One last question.
Yeah.
When we talked about one size fits all,
yes,
right?
Yes.
So if I develop a web app, I understand for native there's a different SDK
yes.
for the TVs.
Yeah,
or
right,
whatever.
right.
If I develop a web app,
yes.
And how would it scale for the 10-foot user interface
exactly.
guidelines that the...
Yeah, that's why I mentioned whenever your application is developed using something called responsive web design, it scales automatically. So unless you use some hard codings, and I mean when I talk about responsive web design, there are three aspects to it. One is you use CSS media queries. Second thing is that you should use fluid grid layout. Third thing is that you should use fluid media. See, if you take care while developing your web application that you adhere to this responsive web design, meaning consciously you are making an attempt while developing your application, your applications will automatically scale to any destination display.
I understand about the responsive web UI, probably something like Twitter Bootstrap or something that
Yeah,
does.
yeah.
But how about the iconography?
Yeah, that's what I said, fluid media.
Okay.
So whenever you are using your images, you have to, it is a responsibility of the developer to select the media accordingly. If you want your application to run in variable at the same time to the TV, yes, this is a definitely difficult task to do, but it is possible. If you follow a fluid media, which can automatically scale, it's possible.
Thanks.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah.
Hello, sir. So one more question regarding the security.
Yeah.
So as far as the developer is concerned, there is always a threat of reverse engineering.
Okay.
Fine. So before launching a particular app, we always obfuscate the code.
Yeah.
Okay, and normally the ProGuard is used for this, and ProGuard is for Java.
Yeah.
Since everything has been developed in C, Is there any kind of code obfuscation available
Uh,
so as to safeguard the developer's code?
see what you want to answer. Okay, I'll first answer it in two ways. Our SDK itself has the facility to obfuscate your code. Okay. Now, specifically coming back to web application, I'd like to tell while I was talking that I mentioned there is a specific aspect of package security. It is possible to actually encrypt your package. So, if a developer wants, he can actually make sure that upon installation his package is encrypted. So, such facility is already provided in SDK.
So it's inbuilt.
Yeah.
Fine.
Any other question? Else we will start on the video, and I have one more session upstairs, so perhaps I will move. Yes, please. Can you please repeat? You mean text to speech? As such, it is not available or integrated in SDK. But if you want to develop one web application which wants to provide this feature, you can definitely use any open source JavaScript library that can do that and use your application to do that. But we from the platform side and through SDK side, as of now, the support is not available. Maybe you can start the video, please.
Here I will be selecting the Here I will be selecting the feature that this application supports all the screen sizes, and those are the tabs. And basically, this entire XML file, inputting the data for that is the user interface is made very simple for the developer. So now we'll build the application and run it. So the icon got installed there and the application is launched. Now you can see that the text hello EFL is there. Let's try to change the text and again rerun and build and rerun it. So that's where the label is getting set over there, hello EFL. Let's change it to sample application. The file is saved. So that was the previous window. So now we are running it. So you can see that text has got changed now. So let's see how to develop one simple native application with an EDC file. So you need to select the UI application with a template as EDC. So in the next session, Govi would be touching upon the EDC files and the elementary and the other details. So it has an header file, it has an EDC file, that's the EDC file, and that's a source file. So again, in this EDC, there is a text part, and we were setting the text part with hello EFL there. Now let's open the EDC file here. Now this is the inventor tool. So let's edit the EDC file here using this inventor tool. So let's fix the text as sample native EDC. And once we save, we can see how that particular text would look actually on your mobile. So this is like you can on the go, you can see whenever you are editing the EDC and save it, the changes are getting reflected here. So let's change the color of the text. The font size. So since we were earlier setting the text, there was a text part and we were setting the text. I'm just commenting it out because we have now fixed the text inside the EDC. So that's how it appears. Next, let's see a native application and how you can develop it using an UI builder. So you need to select the UI builder application type, and I'm using an empty application template. So these are the various UI controls available currently as of now with the UI builder. There's an item container, there's a widget container. So I'm just dragging and I'm just putting a box. So in the outline view, you can see all the widgets that you have dragged and dropped, how they are, the hierarchy of those UI controls. Now let's add a couple of items here. This is basically we are adding a gen list inside a box, and I added a couple of items now. So let's see how you can attach a event callback to this particular item. So it directly takes you to the source code. So this is where you can add the logic to handle that event handling. You can do your event handling here. So that is what you see is what you get. So that's the UI builder. So now let's go through this hybrid application. So there are already a template available for hybrid EFL application, that is a native service application, and an hybrid web application. I just made use of that for demonstration purpose. First, I'm creating the hybrid web app. So let's create a service application. So here I am using the name hybrid EFL because the application ID which was used in the web application is, we have to communicate with the backend service application side. So I have intentionally used the name as hybrid EFL here. So this is your hybrid web application. In the background, there is a service which is continuously scanning the net and it is sending some data over there. So with this, we come to the end of this presentation. So maybe the next session, we are already running short of time for the next session. If you have any queries, you can, I'll be available here. You can always contact me. Thank you, everyone.